Hello and welcome. After a long off-season of waiting, we are back this weekend in Novia Mesto, Namaravi to kick off the 2023 Mountain Bike World Series Cross Country World Cup. And we cannot wait. This year you can find every race in one place, live and on demand on GCN+, where we will have global coverage of the Mountain Bike World Series Cross Country World Cup. I'm joined here in the studio to discuss all things cross-country racing with former World Cup XC racer and Olympian, Oli Beckinsale. Mate, thank you for joining me. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
All well?
I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent. Look, now we have got a crazy season coming up. What are you looking forward to, mate?
I mean, it's been a long break. You know, we had some crazy racing last year. I remember watching the Worlds at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Nino winning again the World Championships.
Man's unstoppable.
An amazing World Cup. I mean, yeah, it's classic venues, new venues, the combination of all the disciplines, all on GCN+ in one place, more juniors, more under 23s, big weekends with, like I say, all the disciplines in one weekend. It's going to be bonkers, but also as well some wicked cross-country action.
Right, before we dive further into this upcoming season, let's take a quick look back at 2022. Nino Schurter won the overall last year with Tito and Karod trailing by 100 points. Luca Brido rounded out the top three a further 100 points back, with David Valero in fourth, just 22 points off of him, and Alan Hafferley rounding out the top five. In the women's, Alessandra Keller proved consistency was crucial, taking top honours, whilst in second place Rebecca McConnell had a great season. Anna Terpstra rounded out the top three with some smashing results, whilst Loana Lecomte, despite missing 3 rounds of the race, still got fourth in the overall, and Mona Missenwaller rounded out that top five. The shorter distance of cross-country short track suited Alan Hafferley, improving on his 5th place in the cross-country Olympic overall to take the title. Swiss riders Filippo Colombo and Matthias Flukiger took second and third, whilst Lucas Schwarzbauer 4th and Titon Karod in 5th. Domination for Alessandra Keller as she took the short track overall as well as Olympic distance. Familiar faces Terpstra and McConnell took 2nd and 3rd respectively, while Yolanda Neff securing 4th place and Jenny Rizvets ending the season in a 5th overall. So Ollie, what do we think sort of the takeaways from last season are, and what's going to maybe transfer over into this season?
So I think if we let's look at the men's race first.
All right.
I think last year, I mean, the one that's on everyone's lips is, when is Nino going to go slower?
The guy's unstoppable, isn't he?
I mean, yeah, it's bonkers.
Yeah.
Last year he took it, it's 8th World Cup overall.
8 overalls. I mean, he's a monster. There's never any writing him off, is there?
No. So I mean, the guy is the greatest of all time in cross country. And he's still winning it. But last year, what was interesting was the mix of people that were winning races.
Yeah.
There were some guys winning their first races. A couple of people underperformed from the year before. But you had Luca Brido.
Yes.
He was awesome in the mid-season. David Valero at the end of the season took his first win. He's been around for a while, but took a mega win. Alan Hafferley was knocking on the door a bit. Yeah. Vlad Daskalu, he was coming up through.
Vlad Daskalu, I think, he's one to watch, I reckon.
So there's a couple of people dropping off a bit, and then there's a few young guns coming through, but ultimately, top of the pile, still Nino Schurter.
Mad. He handles the pressure so well. And what about in the women's? I mean, I just wanted to quickly touch on short track, actually, because it was really cool to see Jenny Rizvets in there. Despite a really inconsistent season, she was there.
In the men's, it was kind of a bit more solid, but in the women's, it was a real mix-up. You had Beth McConnell winning early season World Cups. Again, a rider like Valero that's been around for a while, but really coming good. Start the season, winning some World Cups. You're sad. The overall winner, Alessandra Keller, riding well all year. Kind of almost
in both disciplins.
Yeah, not in the mix for winning the overall till later in the year, but just bubbling under the whole time. And then you had someone like Beth McConnell who died off a bit. Lorna Lecomte, again, dropped off a little bit. And then you had Pauline Prevost coming good right at the end of the season. Evie Richards didn't have a great year, some injury last year. But from recent races, banging back on form, ex-world champion.
The most recent Swiss Cup race she just won as well, obviously.
She just won the big warm-up last week. So, looks like last year's injury history. I was at a national race in Margam Park, British National, the week before. She won
she
there.
Was there, yes.
I haven't been to a national for a while. Watched them riding round.
You tempted?
What's that?
You tempted?
It's all right, the other side of the tape at the moment. But she was riding really well, really strong, super confident, and then backed it up with a win last week. So it'd be good to see her coming through. So the big question, you've still got the kind of old school riders still in the mix, still winning. You've got the younger ones coming up, and it'd be interesting to see another season on, have the tables turned a bit.
Interesting. Right, let's take a look at what's coming up this season. We kick off this weekend with a rider favourite in Novia Mesto Namaravi for the season opener. Next up, XC heads to the classic enduro venue of Finale Ligure for the first time to race marathon. The circus then heads over to Switzerland for the classic venue of Lenzerheide. Leogang hosts all 3 World Cup disciplines on the 15th of June for a celebration of all things mountain biking. Riders return to the classic venue of Val di Sole at the end of June before heading to the Principality of Andorra for the highest altitude venue of the season, Pal Aransal. Perhaps the highlight of the season, all 3 World Cup disciplines will converge once more in Le Passport du Soleil for an epic 10-day festival. Racers head across the pond for the penultimate round at Snowshoe, West Virginia, before hopping across the border for the season finale at Mont Saint Anne, Canada. A heck of a season coming up, isn't it, mate? I mean, there's some very varied venues, some absolute classics in there. So let's start then. Novia Mesto Namaravi to begin with. You've raced there.
I raced the first one.
The very first one since 2011. That's 12th to 14th of May this year, obviously coming up this weekend.
Yep.
How was it when you were there, bud?
It was the worst race of my life, and I broke my hip and was carried off to hospital. But yeah, so I'm probably well placed to say it's pretty technical.
Okay, so it's going to suit those.
Yeah, so it's super rooty.
Yeah.
Can be wet, rocky, big man-made features as well. The big thing about it is the intensity of it. It pretty much sums up the more modern mountain biking, which is super intense,
literally non-stop. So it's a technical rider's course.
Technical rider's course, but also it's hilly as well. For modern mountain bike, it's got everything.
Okay.
Pretty much you go down on an athletics track through the start-finish, big gantries, big crowds, it's awesome.
Yeah, I've heard the crowds are going to be bonkers this weekend. Who are you picking for the win?
Pidcock.
And the women's? I think Yolanda Neff could shine through here.
I don't think she's quite. I'm going to go. I'm going to be patriotic. I'm going to go Evie Richards. Is going to cause an absolute storm.
So cross country from there, we'll then move on to Finale Ligure in northern Italy for the second round of the cross country marathon series.
Yeah.
Heck of a venue. Have been there racing Enduro. I've never been there riding cross country, but
I imagine it's pretty hilly.
It is, and it can be very hot as well.
There was a 24-hour championship there last year, and it was super hot, super difficult.
Yeah, right. Lenzerheide, Switzerland, for round 2 of the XCC and XCO.
In the bike kingdom, Nino's backyard.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so Lenzerheide, high alpine altitude's going to play a big part there.
And it's interesting this year. There's quite a lot of medium altitude, high altitude events, which definitely does suit riders more than others.
Okay, and obviously the Swiss contingent at a World Cup is humongous, so they're going to be looking to impress there, I think.
Yeah, and we've got, obviously there's loads of disciplines of mountain bikes. Some countries are kind of more DH oriented or biased, but in Switzerland,
it's all about XC.
All about XC. Yeah. It's all about Nino and Yolanda Neff, and then winning those races.
Yeah, that's on the 9th to 11th of June. From there, we move on to, Leogang. So Leogang is our first triple header where we've got downhill enduro and cross country. I mean, there's so much. I'm muddling my words up there. I mean,
that is going to be bonkers. It's going to be a cool. And again, we said that some countries are more cross country or DH biased. That Leogang traditionally is a really big DH venue.
Yeah.
The course kind of fits around the downhill course to some degree, and that goes a bit old school. Mountain biking is generally getting shorter, more intense. On the flatter, more punchy side, that one's the big climbs.
Yeah, so it could favour the fitter kind of.
It's more for your kind of little, mountain goat.
Yeah.
Matthias Flukinger, Jordan Saru.
So Pidcock, we'd almost expect to see coming strong there as well.
And then you've got some of the more punchy guys.
There's powerhouse, Avancini in that. There's big powerhouses.
Yeah, the ones that sprint out the saddle. I put Nino in that camp as well. He's probably not his most favourite.
Valero, big guy. Haffley's a powerhouse. Those
so I think you'll see that race is a bit more of the longer ascents. So your little, 60-kilo guys will come to the fore.
Wow. Oh, gosh. Right, onwards and upwards to Val di Sole.
Yeah, classic.
Now, in the downhill world, Val di Sole is wild. What about in the cross-country world?
It's got wilder and wilder every year.
Has it?
Yeah, they start picking.
Goodness.
The main thing about that place is it gets bummed out with all the dust. The rocks come through.
Incredibly so.
Last year, we saw the Worlds. It was really, beaten up, big rocks, roots. It's tougher. And again, a bit of medium altitude as well. So again, the climbs have got shorter, but it's punchy, it's hard. It's a real kind of all-rounders. I like to say, good worlds there last year.
Right, that's the 30th of June to the 2nd of July. Then we move to Andorra. So another sort of high altitude alpine place of Pal Aransal to host the next round.
Yeah, big hills again.
Yeah,
big
I was going to say.
Some switchbacks. There's one hill in that which looks like it's the hardest bit of cross-country World Cup. And it goes up like a ski ramp. And it's about a minute and a half long, and they do it from top to bottom out the saddle.
Pure power.
Pure power at altitude. And I watch it, and I'm sitting on my couch going, that probably...
I'm glad I don't have to race that.
I'm glad I don't race anymore.
I'm glad.
Because that looks absolutely savage.
Yeah, mid-lap.
It's a super tough course, and that is proper altitude. So
right.
For people who aren't aware of it, the higher up we do, we've got less oxygen available, and for doing anything becomes harder work.
Right, and then onwards to the Porte du Soleil in France from the 7th to the 17th of September. Yes, you heard it, 10 days.
10 days of racing.
10 days of racing. And again, we've got a triple header. We've got all the cross-country disciplines. We've got downhill and we've got enduro.
Yeah.
Now, Passport du Soleil is obviously quite famous in the mountain bike world. Big loop out there. What's the sort of cross-country kind of type of stuff going to be like there?
Again, we got medium altitude again. It's another bit of altitude.
Relentless.
I know I'm going on about that quite a bit, but it does add quite a flavour to which riders it suits. It favours the more climby guys when we're up at altitude. But again, the other thing with all these, as soon as you start going up into the mountains a bit, is the weather. But it can change like that. Snowshoe, relatively new, but it's great. It's awesome. There was years where there was no US venue in the World Cup. So to get a venue now that's kind of cemented there, that's a different one to all the others. That's fast, intense, not super hilly there. So you've got all these other alpine ones where people are literally grimping up these hills. With those one there, a bit more of a group race, really punchy, really attacking.
Yeah, because that's the type of racing always changes, doesn't it? Because when you've got these big punchy climbs and then these long descents, you almost... I'm not saying you get a rest on the descent because you definitely don't. But there's almost, it's a bit more interval-y. Whereas a place like Snowshoe, where it is slightly flatter or mellower,
100%.
So they're on the gas the whole time, right?
People think the hilly races be harder. You're completely right. You get an on and an off. The flat races. It's more like a cyclocross type effort, and you're on the gas the whole time. There's no recovery, and it shoots that more punchy recover sort of rider, like an Alvancini, you know. And then once then, and it's been a World Cup venue since World Cup began. Almost at the start.
Yeah, it is like the OG.
It's holded multiple worlds. Again, it is gnarly on the cross country.
Very rocky.
The downhill course is always acknowledged as being like that's the true
top
test.
End,
The cross country is the same as.
It's like they didn't stop adding rocks, is it? They're like, we'll put some rocks in and then have
what's
some more.
kind of cool, they added some man-made features when it was the right time to add that sort of thing in mountain bike. They've now gone back and they've cut some cool lines through the woods, which are more natural. There's some big rock slabs, greasy as hell.
Heck of a season coming up. I'm looking forward to it. But we need to discuss riders and maybe who to look out for, ones to watch, changes, movers, shakers for this season coming up.
There's been a lot of team changes.
There has, hasn't there?
Yeah, a lot of shifting around. I think probably the biggest kind of change is obviously Tom Pidcock was part of the powerhouse road team of Ineos. Them now going, and they didn't have a women's team before on the road.
No one at all. It was just Pidcock as well on the mountain bike.
So Pauline Prevost signing for Ineos.
Yes.
And then making this kind of like ultimate double act.
It really,
Pidcock.
I mean, it is literally two of the world's best.
Yeah.
And that is the team.
That is the team.
That is all they put all their eggs in those two baskets.
Yeah, and they're off. And that team
it's paying off.
Is, in terms of on the road side, they were the guys that led the marginal gains. They leave no stone uncovered.
Yeah, anything that can be done is done.
And so the prep of that team will be the best.
Right.
And they're the ones to aim for as a team. And so for them coming into mountain biking, not just with Pidcock doing it because he loves it, but because they're taking it really seriously next year. And obviously with a home Olympics in Paris. Yeah. Prevost, that's a ride to better.
That is,
and the way she won the Worlds last year, she just dominated.
She did, she rode away from them.
So with the backup with those guys and the legs of last year,
So do we think we'll see her contending for the overall again this year?
100%.
Not just wins, but like the overall at the end of the season?
I think she's the one to beat.
Really?
Yeah, this year.
Wow,
yeah.
you heard it here first from Oli.
The one to beat this year.
And obviously our existing contenders, so Lookin, she doesn't like being beaten.
Yeah, and again, last year she had some inconsistencies, winning, it was either up or down.
Yeah.
And I think if she can find that consistency level this year, again, she's an amazing bike rider, but you've got to be able to do it over, a chunk of races.
Yeah,
8 or 9
it's
races,
not one or two. You've got
and short track,
all the rounds.
all adding up to the overall. So she needs to find some consistency. Then she'll be in the mix. She's clearly capable. Yolanda Neff, again, Olympic champion.
Yeah.
Last year, a bit shaky, maybe a bit of an Olympic hangover. But this year, we'll be back on it.
Yes.
We talked a little bit before about Evie Richards.
We did, yeah.
World champion, a surprise world champion a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But an amazing, off the back of that last year, struggled a little bit with that one.
And we're just coming off the win of that Swiss national, like we said earlier.
But
as well,
last week, she's back in form.
Yeah.
So she's back in the mix again. So that's Yolanda Neff and Evie Richards both on track.
Yeah.
So they're back in the mix again. Alessandra Keller last year, super consistent. She's been winning races already. Those warm-up races. So she's definitely in the mix. Steiger from Specialized coming in. So I think there's going to... And Annie Last as well.
I was going to say, I did want to sort of drop in Annie Last, was a privateer last year, essentially.
Unbelievable.
Back on the Lapierre factory team.
Again, a new team for this year. So that's another new team coming in.
And proving to be a strong, or, having some strong rides in the off-season. So I think she's going to be, and obviously she has won a World Cup.
Yeah.
So, she's got experience. Rizveds, top 5 in the short track last year. Sort of a bit mixed in the XC Olympic discipline. Will we see her
I felt
come back?
My guess would be something solid, but, with the odd
Yeah,
shout.
okay.
But I don't know. From last year, I wouldn't say a win, but I think a couple of podiums, I think. But I think there's some women coming through that are just looking like they're that one notch.
Yeah, right.
Ahead,
Mona Mittermorn, obviously the young gun as well, we should sort of say.
Yeah, still under 23, I think. At
Exactly,
the moment.
yeah.
So they're going to, you've got ladies like that are just going to improve the whole time. And it's when you'll see, I mentioned it before about some of the older riders.
Yes.
If they drop off a few percent,
and then
the other ones come up a few percent naturally, you're going to have a real fight between those for those podium places.
Now on to the men's, because we got obviously a few movers and shakers.
Again, a load of changes.
There is, So let's talk about quite a big one. I think Henry Cavancini, the Brazilian, off of Factory Cannondale.
Yep.
Now onto his own program.
Yep.
Caloi Bikes.
Yeah. So he's had his own team for a while. So his own team signed him.
Yeah, exactly.
Essentially.
He was sort of supporting.
Yeah, I think it's probably it's a bit of a surprise, but when you think of the dynamics of the Cannondale team, he was the man.
Flückiger has obviously come back from a bit of a period off.
Yeah.
So, strong ride, just being pipped by Pidcock in a sprint at the weekend, gone.
That was the big Swiss warm-up for this week.
It was, exactly. And actually, pipping Nino Schurter as well. So Flückiger's looking... back to form.
He's already won a Swiss Cup, which is probably, if we go one notch down from the World Cup, that
Swiss race is
about as hard as it's going to get.
Exactly.
So he's won one of those all year. He's back on it. He's then on the team as well. Lars Forster was at Scott, a previous European champion.
Yeah, over to the Thomas team.
He's come over to the Thomas team, so you have him and Flückiger on the same team now.
Yeah.
They're looking pretty strong.
Now, another massive one, Van der Poel.
Yes.
Matthew Van der Poel. Sadly, he's focusing on road at the beginning part of the season, isn't he? So he will be skipping a few World Cup races.
Yeah, he'll pop back in probably, I think September, October is what he's saying at the moment. Obviously he just won.
In time for World Champs, do we think?
Possibly World Champs as well. Yeah, it's a questionable. I think he just won 2 monuments. He's won Milan San Remo and Roubaix, so he's probably doing all right.
That's nothing to be sniffed at.
It's cool. His love is he loves the mountain bike. Same with Pidcock.
Yeah.
And they say it's the hardest, most fun discipline. The hardest that they do, And this guy just won Paris-Roubaix. Yeah,
and he says he's no slouch when it comes to cyclocross as well. Obviously.
No, they're doing all right.
Yeah.
So it's like it's really. I think it's great for the sport when you've got these multidisciplined, amazing bikes, the best in the world. Yeah. Going. This is the hardest, and this is the best one. The one I love most is the cross country.
That's saying something for the series, isn't it?
Super cool, and I think it's helped bring the whole of cross country over up a little bit.
It's elevated it.
Having those guys on the start line without a doubt.
Yeah.
So he's going to do maybe a couple of rounds. It looks like Pidcock's doing a few more.
Yeah, maybe some Olympic considerations in there, I think.
They're already starting to qualify nation places, and also as well, if you look at the Worlds last year, Pidcock didn't do as many races last year, and therefore his overall result, his ranking was low.
Yeah.
So when he's at the World Championships, he's not on the front row with everyone else.
Yeah.
He was on the 5th or 6th row. So he's at a handicap, and I'm sure he would like to kind of rectify that for this year.
Oh, I think he'd like to smash it.
Yeah. But we've got some great, last year, Luca Brado on Santa Cruz, Valaro again.
Yeah.
He won a World Cup last year.
Yeah, we touched on Vlad Daskalo as well.
He's flying. He's like a Hathaway. He's kind of like, they've got onto the podium.
He's there.
Second places, third places. I don't think it'll be long till Hathaway and Vlad Daskalo both get a win.
I put them down for a potential win this season even, I reckon.
So they're going to be in the mix. Yeah, it's good. And another one, my bit of a dark horse.
Okay.
Under 23.
Oh, yeah.
Martin Villadeur, I think that's how you say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was under 23 champion last year. He bombed big time at the Worlds. But he was unbelievable in all the under 23 races. He's now on Specialised this year.
Okay.
He is good. He's the guy that could
He's a one to watch, you reckon?
He's the one to watch in the background. He's the best under 23 from last year.
Wow, okay.
And he's coming up through, and he's straight into Specialised factory team.
That's
Specialised this year. Again, they have Christopher Blevins, Cape Epic. He won a World Cup snowshoe a couple of years ago. Last year, not quite so good on the cross country, but just won Cape Epic. So he's got legs.
He's fit.
And then you've got Martin Vlado and then Victor Koretsky. Did a bit more road last year. Super skilled, super on it. He's doing a mixed road program this year, but he is French guy, Paris, super skills, strong.
Not to be overlooked by any means. One to watch for the future.
There's probably 10 guys there that could get in that top 3.
Mate, it looks like it's going to be one heck of a season. Yeah. Now, people, don't forget, if you want to watch all of the action, subscribe to GCN Plus, where you'll also be able to watch all the live elite races from the men's and women's. And obviously, subscribe to GMBN Racing here to keep in touch with everything going on. But from us, for now, we're out of it. Ollie, thank you for joining me, mate.
Thanks for having us.
And we'll see you guys at the races.